The crisp October morning air carried the scent of autumn leaves through the gates of Windsor Castle as Queen Camilla stepped out of her burgundy Bentley. Her pearl necklace caught the early sunlight as she adjusted her navy blue coat, preparing for what she believed would be a routine visit to inspect the castle's renovated East Wing. The Queen Consort had no idea that this ordinary Tuesday would become one of the most talked-about incidents in modern royal history. Sergeant William Harrison stood at attention near the castle's main entrance, his red ceremonial uniform pressed to perfection. At 28 years old, Harrison was considered one of the most dedicated members of the Queen's Guard, having served for 6 years without a single mark against his record. His black bearskin hat sat perfectly atop his head, and his rifle was positioned with military precision. What made Harrison different from his fellow guards was his unwavering commitment to protocol, a trait that had earned him both respect and occasional frustration from those who encountered his rigid adherence to rules. As Queen Camilla approached the entrance, she noticed several photographers positioned across the courtyard. The media had been granted limited access to document the castle's restoration project, and their cameras were already capturing her arrival. She smiled and waved gracefully, her years of royal training evident in every gesture. The Queen Consort had grown comfortable with public appearances since marrying King Charles, and she moved with the confidence of someone who belonged in these ancient halls. Harrison watched the approaching royal party with trained eyes. He had been briefed that morning about the Queen Consort's visit, but his commanding officer had emphasized that certain areas of the castle remained off-limits due to ongoing security assessments. The East Wing, despite its recent renovations, was temporarily restricted while new alarm systems were being tested and calibrated. No one, regardless of rank or title, was to enter that section without explicit clearance from the security team. The Queen Consort's private secretary, Margaret Thornfield, walked beside her, carrying a leather folder containing the day's schedule. Margaret had been with the royal household for over a decade and prided herself on smooth operations. She had coordinated with the castle's staff to ensure everything would proceed without incident, but like many others that morning, she was unaware of the specific security restrictions that had been implemented just hours earlier. As they approached the main entrance, Queen Camilla noticed the impressive restoration work that had been completed on the castle's facade. The ancient stones had been carefully cleaned, revealing their original cream color, and new lighting had been installed to highlight the architectural details. She paused to admire the craftsmanship, commenting to Margaret about how wonderful it was to see the castle's history being preserved for future generations. Harrison remained motionless at his post, his eyes scanning the area with professional vigilance. He had been trained to notice everything: unusual movements, unauthorized personnel, potential security threats. What he saw approaching was the Queen Consort moving toward the East Wing entrance, the very area he had been specifically instructed to secure. His training kicked in immediately, and he began to formulate his response according to the protocols he had memorized. The media photographers, sensing something newsworthy might develop, began positioning themselves for better angles. They had covered countless royal visits, and experience had taught them to watch for unexpected moments. The formal atmosphere of royal events could sometimes produce surprising incidents, and today felt different somehow. There was an tension in the air that seasoned reporters had learned to recognize. Queen Camilla's security detail, led by Inspector David Collins, maintained their professional formation around her. Collins had protected various members of the royal family for 15 years and had never encountered a situation where palace guards interfered with royal movements. He was focused on external threats and crowd control, not expecting any complications from within the castle's own security structure. As the group approached the East Wing entrance, Harrison stepped forward from his position. The movement was sudden but controlled, executed with military precision. His ceremonial spear, which had remained at his side, was now held across his body in a defensive position. The action was not threatening, but it was unmistakably a barrier. The polished steel of the spear caught the morning light as Harrison positioned himself directly in the path of the royal party. Margaret Thornfield was the first to notice the guard's movement. She had attended hundreds of royal functions and had never seen anything like it. Palace guards typically remained static during royal visits, their role being ceremonial rather than interactive. She glanced at Queen Camilla, who had also noticed the unusual positioning but continued walking. assuming the guard would step aside as protocol normally dictated. Inspector Collins immediately assessed the situation with professional concern. His hand moved instinctively toward his radio, ready to call for backup if needed. However, he quickly recognized that this was not a security threat in the traditional sense. The guard's posture and positioning suggested adherence to some form of protocol rather than hostile intent. Still, Collins remained alert, ready to intervene if the situation escalated. Harrison's voice carried clearly across the courtyard when he spoke. "Your Majesty, I regret to inform you that access to this section of the castle is currently restricted." His tone was respectful but firm, his military training evident in every word. He had rehearsed various scenarios in his mind countless times, but this was his first real test of protocol versus royal presence. The photographers' cameras began clicking rapidly as they captured the unprecedented scene. None of them had ever witnessed a royal guard directly addressing a member of the royal family in this manner. The formal protocol of royal visits had been disrupted, and they knew they were documenting something significant. Their professional instincts told them to keep shooting while maintaining respectful distance. Queen Camilla stopped walking and looked directly at Harrison, with a mixture of surprise and confusion. In her years as a member of the royal family, she had never been denied access to any part of a royal residence. Palace guards were trained to facilitate royal movements, not obstruct them. She studied the young guard's face, noting his evident nervousness despite his professional demeanor. Margaret immediately stepped forward to address what she assumed was a misunderstanding. "Sergeant, Her Majesty is conducting an inspection of the renovation work. Surely there must be some confusion about the access restrictions." Her voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to resolving administrative issues quickly and efficiently. Harrison maintained his position, his spear held firmly across the entrance. "Ma'am, I have explicit orders that no one is to enter this area without clearance from the Security Command Center. These orders make no exceptions." His response was delivered with military precision, but those close enough could detect a slight tremor in his voice that betrayed his awareness of the magnitude of what he was doing. The tension in the courtyard became palpable as other staff members and guards began to notice the unusual situation developing. Several palace officials who had been coordinating other aspects of the visit started moving toward the scene, sensing that their intervention might be needed. The routine royal visit was quickly transforming into something unprecedented. Inspector Collins stepped closer to Harrison, his voice low but carrying clear authority. "Sergeant, I believe there's been a miscommunication. Her Majesty's visit was cleared through all appropriate channels." He was attempting to defuse the situation while maintaining respect for both the royal protocol and the guard's obvious dedication to his duties. Harrison's response surprised everyone within earshot. "Sir, I received my orders directly from Commander Phillips this morning. The East Wing is under security lockdown pending system verification. No exceptions were mentioned in my briefing. His commitment to his orders was absolute, and his military background had taught him that clear directives trumped assumptions about exceptions." The Queen Consort found herself in a situation she had never encountered before. Her royal training had prepared her for many scenarios, but being denied access by her own guards was not among them. She could see the sincerity in Harrison's face and recognized that he was acting according to what he believed were proper orders, not from any personal disrespect. Margaret pulled out her phone to contact the Security Command Center, hoping to resolve the confusion quickly. However, the castle's thick walls and the location of the security office meant that cellular reception was poor in that area. She would need to use a landline from inside the castle, but that would require leaving Queen Camilla's side, which protocol discouraged during public appearances. The photographers continued documenting the scene, aware that they were witnessing a moment that would likely make headlines around the world. The image of a palace guard blocking Queen Camilla's path was unprecedented in modern royal coverage. They maintained professional discretion while ensuring they captured every significant moment of the developing situation. Harrison could feel the weight of everyone's attention focused on him. His military training had taught him to follow orders regardless of pressure, but nothing had prepared him for the reality of standing between a member of the royal family and her intended destination. Sweat began to form under his ceremonial hat despite the cool morning air. Queen Camilla decided to address Harrison directly, her voice carrying the warmth that had endeared her to the British public. "Sergeant, I appreciate your dedication to your duties. "Perhaps we could contact your commanding officer to clarify the situation?" Her approach was diplomatic, acknowledging his position while seeking a resolution that would preserve everyone's dignity. The suggestion seemed reasonable to everyone present, but Harrison faced a dilemma. His orders had been specific about maintaining his post and not leaving for any reason. Contacting his commanding officer would require either abandoning his position or asking others to fetch the commander, both of which seemed to contradict his instructions. As the standoff continued, other members of the Queen's Guard began to take notice. Several guards positioned around the courtyard found themselves in an awkward position, watching one of their colleagues in a confrontation with the Queen Consort. Their training emphasized supporting fellow guards while respecting royal authority, leaving them uncertain about how to respond. The castle staff who had been preparing for the Queen's inspection began gathering in small groups, whispering among themselves about the unusual scene unfolding before them. Many had worked at royal residences for years and had never witnessed anything comparable. The breach of normal protocol was both fascinating and concerning to those who depended on predictable routines. Commander Phillips, unaware of the situation developing outside, was in his office reviewing security reports from the previous evening. The new alarm systems in the East Wing had experienced several false activations during testing, prompting his decision to restrict access until technical teams could complete their work. He had issued the order to his guards without anticipating that it might conflict with royal visit schedules. Inspector Collins made the decision to radio for additional guidance, hoping to reach someone with the authority to resolve the situation quickly. His years of experience had taught him that such incidents could escalate rapidly if not handled properly, potentially creating both security concerns and public relations problems for the royal household. The morning sun climbed higher in the sky as the unusual standoff continued, casting longer shadows across the ancient courtyard. What had begun as a routine royal visit was evolving into a test of protocol, duty, and the complex hierarchy that governed life within the royal household. None of the participants could have predicted how the situation would ultimately resolve, but each understood that this moment would be remembered long after the renovations were complete. Harrison maintained his position with growing determination, convinced that his adherence to orders was more important than the temporary inconvenience it might cause. His military background had instilled in him the belief that discipline and protocol were the foundations of effective security, regardless of the personalities involved. Queen Camilla, meanwhile, found herself oddly impressed by the young guard's dedication, even as she remained puzzled by the situation. Her years in the royal family had shown her the importance of individuals who took their responsibilities seriously, and she could recognize genuine commitment when she encountered it. The photographers and media representatives present knew they were documenting something significant, though none could predict how the story would develop or what impact it might have on public perception of royal protocol and security procedures. The standoff at Windsor Castle's East Wing entrance had now stretched for nearly 20 minutes, and the atmosphere in the courtyard had grown increasingly tense. Queen Camilla remained poised despite the unprecedented situation, her years of royal training evident in her calm demeanor. However, those who knew her well could detect the slight tightening around her eyes that indicated her growing frustration with the delay. Sergeant Harrison's resolve had not wavered. If anything, the passage of time had strengthened his conviction that he was following the correct course of action. His military background had taught him that orders were absolute, and the fact that no superior officer had arrived to countermand his instructions only reinforced his belief that he was performing his duty correctly. The ceremonial spear remained firmly positioned across the entrance, its polished surface reflecting the growing number of observers who had gathered to witness the unusual scene. Margaret Thornfield had managed to locate a palace phone and was frantically trying to reach various officials who might have the authority to resolve the situation. Her first call to the Security Command Center had gone unanswered, as Commander Phillips was conducting his morning briefing with other guards. Her attempts to reach the castle's administrative offices had been equally unsuccessful, as many staff members were either in meetings or attending to other aspects of the Queen Consort's visit. The media presence had grown significantly as word of the incident spread through their networks. Additional photographers and reporters had arrived, drawn by reports of an unprecedented confrontation between royal guards and a member of the royal family. They maintained respectful distances while documenting every moment, aware that they were witnessing a story that would dominate royal coverage for days to come. Inspector Collins had succeeded in reaching his superiors via radio, but the response he received only added to the confusion. The security protocols for the Queen Consort's visit had indeed been approved through proper channels, but apparently, no one had coordinated these approvals with the temporary access restrictions that had been implemented for the East Wing. The breakdown in communication represented exactly the kind of security gap that professional protection teams worked diligently to prevent. Harrison could hear the radio chatter and phone conversations happening around him, but his training demanded that he maintain focus on his assigned position. He was acutely aware that his actions were being scrutinized by numerous officials, media representatives, and fellow guards, but his military discipline prevented him from wavering in his commitment to his orders. Queen Camilla decided to take a more direct approach to the situation. She stepped closer to Harrison, maintaining appropriate distance while ensuring he could clearly hear her words. "Sergeant Harrison," she began, having noticed his name badge during the prolonged encounter. "I understand you're following your orders, and I respect your dedication to duty. However, I believe there may be some confusion that we can resolve together." Her use of his name and acknowledgement of his position surprised Harrison. In his experience, senior officials rarely took the time to recognize individual guards personally, especially during formal duties. The Queen Consort's approach was both respectful and authoritative, demonstrating the diplomatic skills she had developed during her years in public service. "Your Majesty," Harrison replied, his voice carrying a slight tremor despite his efforts to maintain military bearing. "I appreciate your understanding, but I must respectfully maintain my position until I receive direct orders from my commanding officer. I cannot make exceptions to security protocols, regardless of circumstances." The photographers captured this exchange with particular interest, recognizing that the personal interaction between the Queen Consort and the guard represented a departure from typical royal protocol. The formal distance usually maintained between royalty and security personnel had been temporarily suspended by the unusual circumstances, creating a more human moment within the rigid framework of palace procedure. Several other members of the Queen's Guard who had been positioned around the courtyard found themselves in an increasingly uncomfortable situation. They could see their colleague maintaining what appeared to be a legitimate security position, but they were also aware that his actions were creating a significant disruption to royal activities. Their training emphasized supporting fellow guards while facilitating royal functions, leaving them uncertain about their proper response. Commander Phillips finally emerged from his office building, having been alerted to the situation by a junior officer who had witnessed the developing confrontation. As he strode across the courtyard, his expression showed a mixture of concern and confusion. Phillips was a 20-year veteran of royal security who prided himself on preventing exactly these kinds of protocol conflicts through careful coordination and clear communication. The arrival of the commanding officer created a visible shift in the dynamics of the situation. Harrison straightened his already rigid posture, prepared to report his actions to his superior. Queen Camilla and her entourage turned their attention to Phillips, hoping that his presence would finally provide the authority needed to resolve the standoff. "Sergeant Harrison," Commander Phillips called out as he approached, his voice carrying the authority of years in command, "report your current status and the reason for this position." Harrison's response was immediate and precise. "Sir, I am maintaining security of the East Wing entrance as ordered during this morning's briefing. Access is restricted pending system verification, with no exceptions authorized." His military bearing was perfect as he delivered his report, confident that his actions would be validated by his commanding officer. Commander Phillips paused, suddenly realizing the source of the confusion. His morning briefing had indeed emphasized the East Wing restrictions, but he had failed to coordinate these limitations with the schedule for royal visits. The oversight represented a significant breakdown in the normally seamless coordination between different aspects of castle security. Queen Camilla watched the exchange between the two military men with growing interest. She could see the moment of recognition in Commander Phillips' expression and understood that the situation was more complex than a simple misunderstanding about orders. The security protocols had genuinely conflicted, creating a scenario where a dedicated guard was forced to choose between different aspects of his duties. "Your Majesty," Commander Phillips said, turning to address the Queen Consort directly, "I must apologize for this confusion. Sergeant Harrison has been following security orders that were issued this morning, but these orders were not properly coordinated with your scheduled visit. The fault lies with our administrative procedures, not with the sergeant's performance of his duties. The admission of administrative error provided some clarity to the situation, but it also highlighted the complexity of managing security in an environment where multiple protocols intersected. Margaret Thornfield made notes about the incident, recognizing that it would require follow-up discussion with various palace departments to prevent similar occurrences in the future. Harrison remained at attention, awaiting specific instructions from his commanding officer. The acknowledgement that he had been following legitimate orders provided some validation for his actions, but he was also aware that his rigid adherence to protocol had created a significant disruption to royal activities. His military training had not prepared him for situations where duty and diplomacy intersected so directly. The media representatives present recognized that they were witnessing not just an amusing incident, but a genuine glimpse into the complex machinery of royal security and protocol. The story had evolved beyond simple confrontation into a more nuanced examination of how institutional procedures could sometimes conflict with practical requirements. Inspector Collins used the temporary pause intention to reassess the security implications of the incident. While the immediate situation appeared to be resolving, the breakdown in communication between different security elements represented a concern that would require thorough review. His protective instincts remained alert for any potential exploitation of the confusion by external threats. Commander Phillips faced a delicate decision about how to proceed. He needed to resolve the immediate situation while maintaining respect for both royal protocol and military discipline. His solution would need to acknowledge Harrison's correct following of orders while also facilitating the Queen Consort's access to areas she was authorized to visit. "Sergeant Harrison," Phillips announced, "you are hereby authorized to grant access to the East Wing for Her Majesty's inspection, under escort by security personnel. Your adherence to original orders is noted and commended, but circumstances require modification of those restrictions." The formal authorization provided Harrison with the clear direction he had been waiting for throughout the confrontation. His relief was visible as he stepped aside and repositioned his ceremonial spear to its normal carrying position. The barrier that had prevented royal access for nearly half an hour was finally removed. Queen Camilla smiled as she prepared to continue her intended inspection. "Thank you, Sergeant Harrison. Your dedication to your duties is admirable, and I hope this incident hasn't been too stressful for you." Her words carried genuine warmth and appreciation for the young guard's commitment, despite the inconvenience his actions had caused. Harrison's response was immediate and heartfelt. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I apologize for any inconvenience, but I was determined to follow my orders correctly." His military bearing remained perfect, but those close enough could detect the relief in his voice now that the situation had been resolved with his reputation intact. The photographers captured the moment of resolution with the same intensity they had brought to documenting the confrontation. The images of Queen Camilla thanking the guard who had blocked her path would become some of the most widely circulated royal photographs of the year, illustrating both the human side of royal interactions and the dedication of those who protected royal residences. As the royal party prepared to continue their tour, Margaret Thornfield made additional notes about the incident, recognizing that it would become a case study in palace communications and security coordination. The morning's events had revealed gaps in protocol that would need to be addressed to prevent similar conflicts in the future. Commander Phillips escorted the group toward the East Wing entrance, mentally reviewing the security modifications that would be needed to ensure the Queen Consort's inspection could proceed safely, despite the ongoing technical work in the area. His years of experience had taught him to adapt quickly to unexpected situations while maintaining appropriate security standards. Harrison resumed his normal guard position, but his morning's experience had fundamentally changed his perspective on the intersection of duty, protocol, and practical problem-solving. The incident had tested his commitment to military discipline, while also demonstrating the importance of flexibility and communication in complex institutional environments. The East Wing entrance, which had been the focal point of such dramatic tension, now appeared unremarkable as the royal party passed through. However, everyone present understood that the ordinary-looking doorway had become the site of an extraordinary test of protocol, duty, and the human elements that operated within formal institutional structures. As Queen Camilla disappeared into the castle's interior, the courtyard began to return to its normal rhythms. However, the morning's events had created ripple effects that would influence royal security procedures, media coverage, and public perception of both royal accessibility and the dedication of those charged with protecting royal residences. Inside the east wing of Windsor Castle, Queen Camilla proceeded with her inspection, while the morning's dramatic events continued to reverberate throughout the royal household. The renovated corridors gleamed with fresh paint and restored architectural details, but the Queen Consort's attention was divided between the impressive restoration work and her thoughts about the unprecedented encounter she had just experienced with Sergeant Harrison. The East Wing had indeed been transformed during its renovation. Crystal chandeliers had been carefully restored to their original brilliance, casting warm light across newly polished marble floors. Portraits of previous monarchs gazed down from freshly cleaned walls, their frames re-gilded to highlight intricate craftsmanship. Queen Camilla paused to admire a particularly beautiful tapestry that had been expertly conserved, its centuries-old colors now vibrant once again. Margaret Thornfield walked alongside the Queen Consort, her leather folder now containing hastily scribbled notes about the morning's incident in addition to the scheduled inspection details. She was already mentally drafting the reports that would need to be filed with various palace departments, security offices, and media relations teams. The unprecedented nature of the confrontation meant that protocols would need to be reviewed and possibly revised to prevent similar situations in the future. Commander Phillips accompanied the royal party, his experienced eyes noting both the security implications of the renovation work and the potential vulnerabilities that might have motivated his morning restrictions. The new alarm systems that had prompted the access limitations were indeed sensitive, having triggered several false alerts during their testing phase. His decision to restrict access had been based on legitimate security concerns, even though the communication breakdown had created the dramatic confrontation. In the courtyard outside, Sergeant Harrison had returned to his regular duties, but the atmosphere around him had changed significantly. Fellow guards who had witnessed the incident approached him during brief breaks in their ceremonial positions, some offering support for his adherence to orders, others questioning whether flexibility might have been more appropriate given the circumstances. The debate reflected broader discussions within military and security communities about balancing rigid protocol with practical problem-solving. The media representatives who had documented the confrontation were already transmitting their photos and preliminary reports to news organizations worldwide. The images of a palace guard blocking Queen Camilla's path represented exactly the kind of unexpected royal story that captured public imagination. News editors recognized immediately that the incident would generate significant interest, combining elements of protocol, duty, and human drama that resonated with audiences. Back inside the castle, Queen Camilla paused in the renovated library, where thousands of rare books had been carefully preserved and cataloged during the restoration process. The room smelled of leather bindings and old paper scents that connected the present moment to centuries of royal history. She found herself thinking about the young guard who had stood so firmly in her path, impressed despite herself by his unwavering commitment to what he believed was correct procedure. "Margaret," she said, turning to her private secretary, "I want to ensure that Sergeant Harrison faces no negative consequences for this morning's incident. His actions may have been inconvenient, but they demonstrated exactly the kind of dedication we should want in those who protect royal residences." Margaret nodded, making additional notes about the Queen Consort's specific instructions regarding Harrison's treatment. She understood that royal protection of subordinates who had acted in good faith was both a matter of fairness and practical management. Guards who feared punishment for following orders might hesitate in genuine security situations, potentially creating more serious risks. Commander Phillips overheard the conversation and felt both relief and professional satisfaction. His assessment of Harrison as a dedicated and reliable guard had been validated by the Queen Consort's own recognition of the young man's commitment. However, the incident had also highlighted communication and coordination issues within his security structure that would require immediate attention. In another part of the castle, palace officials who had heard about the confrontation were conducting urgent discussions about the implications for royal security procedures. The breakdown in coordination between different security elements represented exactly the kind of vulnerability that external threats might exploit. Reviews of communication protocols and authorization procedures would need to be comprehensive and immediate. The renovation work in the East Wing had revealed not only the castle's architectural beauty, but also the complexity of maintaining security in a working royal residence. The new alarm systems, upgraded surveillance equipment, and enhanced access controls all represented significant improvements in protection capabilities, but they also created new challenges for coordination and communication among different security teams. Queen Camilla continued her inspection, admiring the restored ceiling frescoes in the main reception hall. The delicate artwork had required months of careful cleaning and conservation, with specialists working to remove centuries of accumulated grime while preserving the original pigments. The result was stunning, revealing details that had been hidden for decades and restoring the room to something approaching its original grandeur. The technical challenges that had prompted the morning's access restrictions were indeed complex. The new security systems included motion sensors, calibrated to detect unauthorized movement while ignoring routine activities, cameras with advanced facial recognition capabilities, and communication networks that integrated with central monitoring stations. However, the sensitivity required for effective security often conflicted with the practical needs of daily palace operations. Outside the castle, news of the incident was beginning to spread through social media and online news platforms. Early reports focused on the dramatic visual of a guard blocking the queen consort's path, but more detailed coverage was beginning to explore the institutional and security implications of the confrontation. Royal watchers and security experts were offering various interpretations of what the incident revealed about palace operations. Harrison himself was struggling to process the morning's events and their potential implications for his career. His military training had taught him that following orders was paramount, but his encounter with Queen Camilla had shown him the human cost of rigid adherence to protocol. The queen consort's gracious response to his actions had surprised him, challenging some of his assumptions about royal attitudes toward subordinates. The castle's staff members who had witnessed the confrontation found themselves discussing the incident throughout the rest of their shifts. Many had worked in royal residences for years without seeing anything comparable, and the breach of normal protocol had created a sense of unease mixed with fascination. Some viewed Harrison's actions as admirable dedication, while others questioned whether common sense should have prevailed over strict rule-following. In the renovated East Wing, Queen Camilla concluded her inspection in the newly restored portrait gallery. The room contained paintings of monarchs dating back centuries, their faces representing the continuity of royal tradition and the evolution of British history. She found herself reflecting on how each generation had faced challenges that required balancing tradition with adaptation, protocol with practical needs. The morning's incident had inadvertently demonstrated several important aspects of modern royal operations. The dedication of individual guards like Harrison showed that royal security remained in capable hands, while the communication breakdown highlighted areas where procedures could be improved. The queen consort's gracious handling of an awkward situation reflected the diplomatic skills that made her an effective representative of the monarchy. Margaret completed her notes about the renovation work, while also documenting the security incident for later review. Her reports would need to balance appreciation for the impressive restoration achievements with acknowledgement of the procedural challenges that had emerged. The dual nature of her documentation reflected the complex reality of managing both ceremonial functions and practical operations within royal households. Commander Phillips was already planning the comprehensive review of security coordination that would be necessary following the morning's events. The incident had been resolved successfully, but it had revealed vulnerabilities in communication and authorization procedures that could have more serious implications in different circumstances. His military background demanded thorough analysis and systematic improvement of any identified weaknesses. As the royal party prepared to leave the East Wing, Queen Camilla took one final look at the beautifully restored spaces. The renovation had been successful beyond expectations, creating areas that honored royal history while providing modern functionality. However, the morning's events had reminded everyone involved that the human elements of royal operations were often more complex and unpredictable than even the most careful planning could anticipate. The incident at Windsor Castle would ultimately become more than just an amusing anecdote about royal protocol. It represented a genuine case study in institutional management, individual dedication, and the ongoing challenge of balancing security requirements with operational flexibility. The lessons learned would influence royal security procedures for years to come, while also providing insight into the character and values of both the Queen Consort and the guards charged with protecting her. Harrison's steadfast commitment to his orders, despite enormous pressure to yield, had demonstrated the quality of personnel serving in royal protection roles. At the same time, Queen Camilla's patient and gracious response to an unprecedented situation had shown her understanding of the complex pressures faced by those who worked to ensure royal security and comfort. The renovated East Wing of Windsor Castle stood as a testament to the skillful preservation of royal heritage, but the morning's events had created an equally important testament to the human elements that gave life and meaning to ancient traditions. The intersection of duty, protocol, and personal character that had played out in the castle courtyard would be remembered long after the renovation work was forgotten. As news of the incident continued to spread, it would spark discussions about military discipline, royal accessibility, and the balance between security and public service that defined modern monarchy. The story of Sergeant Harrison and Queen Camilla at Windsor Castle would become part of royal lore, illustrating the ongoing evolution of ancient institutions in contemporary settings. The morning that had begun with such promise for a routine royal inspection had evolved into something far more significant, creating ripple effects that would influence royal operations, security procedures, and public understanding of the complex human dynamics that operated behind the formal facade of royal protocol. By afternoon, news of the confrontation at Windsor Castle had exploded across British media and international news networks. The photographs of Sergeant Harrison holding his ceremonial spear across Queen Camilla's path had become viral sensations, shared millions of times across social media platforms within hours of the incident. The story had everything that captured public imagination: royal drama, military duty, and an unprecedented breach of normal protocol that left audiences both entertained and intrigued. BBC News ran the story as their lead item at midday, with royal correspondent Sarah Mitchell providing detailed analysis of the incident's implications for royal security and protocol. Standing outside Windsor Castle, Mitchell explained to viewers that nothing comparable had been documented in modern royal history, making the morning's events genuinely newsworthy beyond their immediate entertainment value. The photographs taken by the media representatives present at the scene had been carefully selected for maximum impact. The image that received the widest circulation showed Queen Camilla looking directly at Harrison, while his spear remained firmly positioned across the entrance, her expression showing surprise and curiosity rather than anger. The composition captured both the formal nature of royal protocol and the human drama of the unexpected confrontation. Social media reactions ranged from amusement to admiration for Harrison's dedication to duty. Twitter users created hashtags like #RoyalGuardDuty and #ProtocolMatters, with thousands of posts debating whether the sergeant's actions represented admirable commitment or excessive rigidity. Many military veterans posted messages supporting Harrison's adherence to orders, while others questioned whether flexibility might have been more appropriate given the circumstances. Inside Buckingham Palace, senior royal staff members were conducting urgent meetings about the incident's implications for royal security and public relations. Private Secretary to the King, Sir Clive Alderton, had been briefed about the morning's events and was coordinating responses with both security officials and communications teams. The unprecedented nature of the confrontation required careful management to prevent misinterpretation or exploitation by those seeking to criticize royal operations. Queen Camilla herself had returned to her private apartments in the early afternoon, having completed her inspection of the renovated East Wing. Despite the morning's dramatic interruption, she found herself genuinely impressed by both the restoration work and the incident that had delayed her access to it. The young guard's unwavering commitment to his duties had reminded her of the dedication that supported royal operations at every level. Margaret Thornfield was fielding phone calls from numerous news organizations, seeking official comment about the incident. Palace communications protocol required careful consideration of any public statements, particularly regarding security matters that might reveal operational procedures. Her responses emphasized the Queen Consort's appreciation for dedicated service while acknowledging that coordination procedures were being reviewed for improvement. The international media had picked up the story with enthusiasm, recognizing its appeal to audiences worldwide who followed British royal news. American television networks ran segments about the incident during their evening news programs, with royal experts providing commentary about the rigid protocol that governed palace operations. The story translated well across cultural boundaries, touching on universal themes of duty, authority, and individual commitment. Commander Philip spent his afternoon in meetings with senior palace security officials, reviewing the communication breakdown that had led to the morning's confrontation. The incident had been resolved successfully without security compromise, but it had revealed gaps in coordination procedures that required immediate attention. His military background demanded thorough analysis and systematic improvement of identified vulnerabilities. Harrison found himself at the center of media attention he had never anticipated when he accepted his position in the Queen's Guard. Fellow guards approached him throughout the day with reactions ranging from supportive to questioning, reflecting broader debates about the balance between rigid protocol and practical flexibility. His military training had not prepared him for the psychological pressure of public scrutiny, but his commitment to duty remained unchanged. The renovation work that had prompted the morning's access restrictions continued in the East Wing, with technical teams working to calibrate the new security systems that had created the original conflict. The irony was not lost on palace staff that systems designed to improve security had inadvertently created a security incident through communication failure. The sophisticated technology required equally sophisticated coordination procedures to operate effectively. Legal experts consulted by news organizations confirmed that Harrison's actions had been entirely within his authority and responsibilities as a member of the Queen's Guard. His orders to restrict access to the East Wing had been legitimate, and his adherence to those orders demonstrated exactly the kind of reliability that royal security required. The incident highlighted the complex intersection of military discipline and royal protocol rather than any failure of individual judgment. Public opinion polls conducted by major news organizations showed overwhelming support for Harrison's actions, with over 70% of respondents indicating that guards should follow security orders regardless of inconvenience to royal schedules. The results reflected British appreciation for military discipline and individual commitment to duty, values that resonated strongly with audiences across political and social boundaries. Royal protection experts interviewed by various media outlets used the incident as an opportunity to educate the public about the complexity of palace security operations. The coordination required between different security elements, communication protocols, and authorization procedures represented a constant challenge in environments where ceremonial functions intersected with practical security requirements. The story had particular appeal from military communities worldwide, where Harrison's actions were generally viewed as exemplary rather than problematic. Military blogs and forums featured extensive discussions about the incident, with veterans sharing their own experiences of following difficult orders under pressure. The consensus among military audiences was that Harrison had performed exactly as his training dictated. Queen Camilla's gracious response to the confrontation had earned widespread praise from commentators who noted her diplomatic handling of an awkward situation. Royal experts pointed to her reaction as evidence of her growing confidence and skill in royal duties, demonstrating the kind of grace under pressure that effective royal service required. The incident had also sparked broader discussions about the accessibility of royal family members and the balance between security and public service. Some commentators argued that the confrontation illustrated necessary security measures in an uncertain world, while others suggested that overly rigid protocols might create distance between royalty and the people they served. Evening news programs featured extended segments about the incident, with royal correspondents providing context about palace security and the role of the Queen's Guard in protecting royal residences. The story's visual drama made it ideal for television coverage, while its human interest elements ensured continued audience engagement throughout the news cycle. Harrison's background and military service record became subjects of media investigation, with reporters discovering his exemplary service history and dedication to royal protection duties. The portrait that emerged was of a conscientious young man who took his responsibilities seriously, reinforcing public support for his actions during the morning's confrontation. The technical systems that had prompted the original access restrictions represented significant investments in palace security, incorporating cutting-edge technology for surveillance, access control, and threat detection. However, The incident had demonstrated that human communication remained as important as technological sophistication in maintaining effective security operations. Palace staff members who had witnessed the confrontation found themselves contacted by news organizations seeking first-hand accounts of the incident. Most declined to comment publicly, reflecting both professional discretion and palace policies regarding media interaction. However, their private discussions throughout the day reflected genuine respect for both Harrison's dedication and the Queen Consort's diplomatic response. The story's international reach had surprised even experienced royal correspondents, who noted that the combination of protocol, duty, and human drama had created exactly the kind of narrative that captured global attention. The incident represented British institutional traditions while touching on universal themes that resonated across cultural boundaries. As evening approached, the initial shock and amusement generated by the morning's events was evolving into more serious consideration of the incident's implications. Royal security experts used the opportunity to discuss the complex challenges of protecting public figures in contemporary settings, while military analysts examined the broader questions of duty and flexibility that Harrison's actions had raised. The photographs and video footage from the morning continued to circulate widely, with media organizations using the images to illustrate stories about royal protocol, military discipline, and institutional traditions. The visual record of the confrontation had become historical documentation of a unique moment in modern royal history. Harrison himself remained largely silent about the incident, following military protocol regarding media interaction while continuing his regular duties at Windsor Castle. His commitment to discretion and duty had earned additional respect from colleagues and supervisors who recognized the pressure he faced from unprecedented public attention. The day that had begun with a routine royal inspection had evolved into a comprehensive examination of royal operations, military discipline, and the human elements that gave life to ancient institutions. The story of Sergeant Harrison and Queen Camilla at Windsor Castle had become more than entertainment. It had become a lens through which audiences could examine their own values regarding duty, authority, and individual commitment. As media coverage continued throughout the evening, it became clear that the morning's incident would have lasting impact on public understanding of royal operations and the dedication of those who served in protecting royal residences. The story had revealed both the complexity of palace security and the human character that operated within formal institutional structures. 3 weeks after the incident at Windsor Castle, the immediate media frenzy had subsided, but the lasting effects of that October morning continued to ripple through royal operations, military circles, and public consciousness. The confrontation between Sergeant Harrison and Queen Camilla had evolved from a momentary breach of protocol into a catalyst for meaningful changes in royal security procedures and public understanding of institutional dynamics. Commander Phillips sat in his office reviewing the comprehensive report he had compiled about the incident and its aftermath. The 40-page document detailed not only the events of that morning, but also the systematic review of communication and coordination protocols that had followed. The breakdown in information sharing that had created the original conflict had been addressed through new procedures requiring cross-verification of security restrictions with royal scheduling departments. The new protocols implemented following the incident represented significant improvements in palace security coordination. Digital systems now automatically flagged potential conflicts between security restrictions and scheduled royal activities, while enhanced communication procedures ensured that all relevant parties received timely updates about operational changes. The technological solutions addressed the human communication failures that had created the morning's drama. Sergeant Harrison had been formally commended for his adherence to duty during the confrontation, receiving recognition from both his military superiors and senior palace officials. The commendation citation specifically noted his unwavering commitment to security protocols under extraordinary pressure, acknowledging that his actions had demonstrated exactly the kind of reliability that royal protection required. The formal recognition had validated his decision to maintain his position, despite the enormous pressure to yield. Queen Camilla had personally requested a private meeting with Harrison the week following the incident, using the opportunity to thank him directly for his dedication and to discuss the complex challenges of balancing security with accessibility. The 15-minute conversation had taken place in a private reception room at Windsor Castle, with only Commander Phillips present as witness. The meeting had been kept confidential, but its impact on Harrison had been profound. During their private conversation, Queen Camilla had expressed genuine appreciation for Harrison's commitment while also sharing her own perspective on the challenges of royal duties. She had explained how her role required balancing public accessibility with security requirements, and how individuals like Harrison made it possible for royal family members to fulfill their public responsibilities. The personal connection had transformed the young guard's understanding of his role within the broader royal mission. The media coverage of the incident had gradually evolved from sensational headlines to more thoughtful examination of the institutional questions it had raised. Royal correspondents used the story as a starting point for broader discussions about the evolution of monarchy in modern times, the balance between tradition and adaptation, and the human elements that operated within formal protocol structures. Academic institutions had begun incorporating the incident into case studies about organizational communication, crisis management, and institutional leadership. Business schools used the Windsor Castle confrontation to illustrate how communication breakdowns could create conflicts between different organizational priorities, while military academies examined the tension between rigid protocol and situational flexibility. The renovation work in Windsor Castle's East Wing had been completed successfully, with the new security systems functioning properly under the enhanced coordination procedures developed following the incident. The technical challenges that had originally prompted the access restrictions had been resolved, but the improved communication protocols they had inspired would continue to benefit palace operations for years to come. Harrison's fellow guards had watched his handling of the incident and its aftermath with professional interest and growing respect. His refusal to seek personal publicity or exploit his momentary fame had reinforced his reputation for integrity and dedication. Many younger guards looked to him as an example of how to maintain military bearing and commitment under unexpected pressure. The incident had also prompted broader discussions within royal households about the importance of individual initiative and critical thinking alongside adherence to protocol. Training programs for palace staff now included scenarios designed to help personnel navigate situations where different aspects of their duties might conflict, emphasizing both the importance of following orders and the value of appropriate communication when circumstances changed. Public opinion research conducted months after the incident showed that Harrison's actions had enhanced rather than damaged public perception of royal security. The demonstration of individual dedication and institutional reliability had reassured citizens that royal protection remained in capable hands, while Queen Camilla's gracious response had illustrated the kind of leadership that effective monarchy required. International royal families had studied the incident and its resolution as an example of effective crisis management and institutional adaptation. The combination of individual accountability, institutional learning, and public communication had created a template for handling unexpected challenges that other monarchies found valuable for their own operations. The photographs from that October morning had become part of royal historical archives, documentation of a unique moment when protocol, duty, and human character intersected in unexpected ways. The images would likely be included in future histories of the contemporary royal family as examples of the complex realities behind formal ceremonial functions. Harrison had quietly declined numerous offers for interviews and book deals, maintaining the discretion and modesty that had characterized his service throughout his career. His commitment to privacy and duty had earned additional respect from both military colleagues and royal staff members, who appreciated his refusal to exploit his brief moment of fame for personal gain. The East Wing of Windsor Castle, now fully renovated and properly secured, had hosted several successful royal events in the months following the incident. The rooms where Queen Camilla had conducted her delayed inspection had become popular venues for state functions, their beauty enhanced by both the restoration work and the enhanced security systems that protected them. Commander Phillips had used lessons learned from the incident to improve training programs for all palace security personnel. New scenarios included exercises designed to test communication procedures and decision-making under pressure, ensuring that future guards would be better prepared to handle complex situations involving conflicting priorities or unexpected circumstances. The incident had become a favorite topic among royal watchers and historians who studied the intersection of tradition and modernity in contemporary monarchy. The story illustrated how ancient institutions continued to evolve and adapt while maintaining their essential character and values, providing insight into the ongoing vitality of traditional structures in modern settings. Queen Camilla's handling of the confrontation had become a case study in diplomatic leadership, demonstrating how grace under pressure and respect for individual dedication could transform potentially embarrassing situations into opportunities for positive public engagement. Her approach had reinforced her growing reputation as an effective and empathetic member of the royal family. The morning that had begun with such routine expectations had ultimately demonstrated the unpredictable nature of royal service and the importance of individuals who took their responsibilities seriously. The confrontation at Windsor Castle had revealed both the complexity of modern royal operations and the human qualities that gave meaning to institutional traditions. As the first anniversary of the incident approached, palace staff members still occasionally referenced the morning when protocol and duty had collided so dramatically in the castle courtyard. The story had become part of palace lore, illustrating important lessons about communication, dedication, and the ongoing evolution of royal service in contemporary times. The legacy of that October confrontation extended far beyond its immediate participants. The incident had prompted improvements in royal security procedures, enhanced public understanding of palace operations, and provided a compelling example of how individual character and institutional values could intersect in meaningful ways. The story of Sergeant Harrison and Queen Camilla at Windsor Castle had become more than royal entertainment. It had become a testament to the enduring importance of duty, dignity, and human connection within formal institutional structures. The young guard who had stood so firmly at his post that morning had unknowingly created a moment that would influence royal operations for years to come. His unwavering commitment to duty had not only protected security protocols, but had also demonstrated the quality of character that effective royal service required. The confrontation that had seemed so dramatic in the moment had ultimately strengthened both individual careers and institutional procedures. Windsor Castle continued its ancient role as a royal residence and symbol of British heritage, but the events of that October morning had added a new chapter to its long history. The story of duty, protocol, and human dignity that had played out in its courtyard would be remembered alongside the castle's other historical moments as an example of how traditional institutions remained vital and relevant in contemporary settings. The transformation of a routine royal visit into a defining moment of institutional character had surprised everyone involved, but the positive outcomes that had emerged demonstrated the value of individuals who took their responsibilities seriously and leaders who recognized dedication when they encountered it. The morning at Windsor Castle had become proof that even the most unexpected moments could reveal the essential qualities that gave life and meaning to ancient traditions.